YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy James with Make an Opening, and it is hold on. It is time to cook some aggro decks. You feel me? Hey guys, it's James with Make an Opening. Today we're gonna go over how to properly cook your aggro decks. I've been seeing a lot of people post in the subreddit and then Discord. Some of them are still raw. A lot of them have been like burnt even as well. And if you try to cook an aggro deck and you don't cook it properly, it's either going to come back and burn you or it's going to go in raw, and that's not what we want. So today, that's what we're going to go over. We're going to open up the handy dandy cookbook and we'll go over how to cook aggro decks properly, starring me and I guess my cat back here as well. But he's not much of a chef. Me, you know, I got the apron, got the spatula, I got the time leaves, right? I'm a chef. Also, thank you guys so much for 400 subscribers. I started at the beginning of April, so I've been doing it for 2 months now, and I'm sitting at 400 subs, so 200 a month is pretty cool. You know, I should hit 500 sometime next month for the release or before the release of the next set. And I've been thinking about maybe possibly doing a giveaway, maybe giving away not like a whole box of the set, but maybe something to do with the next set, or maybe just some extra cards I have of the current set. If you have any ideas, let me know. But yeah, just thank you guys so much. If you guys aren't already subscribed, make sure to go ahead and like, comment, share the video, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I have been inconsistent. That's going to change. Life has just been, you know, going. But yeah, I'm going to go back to uploading pretty consistently. I mean, look at me. You guys got me in a pretty maid outfit, right? Like, look at this apron. Look at this apron. It's time to cook. It's time to cook. Come on, it's time to cook. Without further ado, boys, let's open up that cookbook. So when I was saying cook aggro decks, I wasn't meaning how to cook up an aggro deck as in how to create one. I am talking about how to cook an aggro deck. If you're like me and you're tired of seeing all these Sabine players, Leia players, you know, there's a couple of them that I know personally. You aggro loving demons, right? We don't like them. We want them gone. So this is how to cook aggro decks by James from Make an Opening. So the recipe today, ladies and gentlemen, is an aggro counter. Now, every great dish is never done without the proper herbs and spices. Today, we are covering the herbs. Herbs is a funny little acronym that I was thinking about whenever I was thinking about how to counter aggro decks, and it inspired all of this. Don't forget, it's time. It's time to beat them. Don't forget, it's time to subscribe if you haven't done that yet either. So herbs, H is for healing, E is for exhausting, R is for removal, B is for bouncing, and S is for sentinel. Together, you get the herbs. Let's go ahead and hop into page 1 of this beautiful aggro counter recipe book, where we're going to be going over the healing. So ladies and gentlemen, the H is indeed for healing. Now the H may be silent, but this is the most important thing to have in your deck when you're facing an aggro player and you yourself are not aggro. If you're mid-range, if you're control, this is what is most important. Now, cards with the restore keyword and other healing effects buy you a lot of time, and when extending into an in-game aggro decks, typically struggle to close out games as they top out their curve around 5 to 7 resources. You're looking at some decks running U-Wing reinforcement. Gorilla Attack Pod is being seen less and less throughout the aggro metagame as of late, which is a 6 resource card. Playing cards with restore, like what we have listed here in the recipe book right over there. Consortium Star Viper, Yoda. There's others, of course, but there's some nice, cheap, easy ones to get on the board by turn 2. They can really help because they're either going to heal your base for 2, or they're going to draw attention away from your base, which is going to save you time. Either way, heals that double as removal as well are going to be really great options. Cards like Make an Opening. Time to subscribe, by the way, to Make an Opening. And, you know, cards like Vigilance and stuff as well are going to be amazing, fantastic options to throw up in that pot. Extra little healing herbs and spices, extra little bit, like just a little dash, right? A little salt bay, sprinkle it all in there. And that's just step 1 of making a delicious, delicious dish. Now the next page is exhausting. E is for exhausting. So exhausting key units on the opponent's side of the board and buying yourself time can be a huge part of the aggro counter strategy that we are whipping up in the kitchen here today at Make an Opening. Exhausting key units before a big swing or an activation can buy you time to not only clean up their board, but it can also put you in a more advantageous position to just straight up win the game entirely. Exhausting is typically never enough though. You're gonna want to pair it with other really good effects, such as taking out exhausted units with your own units, healing while you have the time, because you know they're not attacking in, so you can use that time to heal your own base, going back to the H in the herbs, you know. Stuff like that. A couple really good options for exhausting. No Good to Me Dead is the standout premier exhaust card in the format. For 2 resources, as long as you're playing in yellow, you get to exhaust a unit, and that unit cannot ready this round. That card is just straight up fantastic. I would say not to use it on just random pesky units, but if they're getting big and buffed out of control with wing leaders, fleet lieutenants, medal ceremonies, maybe you can. But it's really good to save No Good to Be Dead and, you know, cards like that, entrenched even for the leaders, specifically like Sabine, Boba, Leia, aggro leaders that want to come out and get stuff done. Just lock them down a little bit. Tell them to, hey, no running in my kitchen because we cooking. It's time to cook. If you make it late game and they still have a really good board presence, if you haven't enabled a board wipe or anything like that, AT&T Suppressor is also a really good option. 8 resource, 8/8 exhaust all units on, you know, that zone, so all the ground units get exhausted. Good way to just buy some more time. And next up, we're going to flip the page and learn about what the R in the herbs stands for. Now, R in herbs stands for removal, baby. There are 2 types of removal in the game. There's single target and there's mass removal as well. And then there's 2 types of single target removal. There's cheap and then there's expensive. Cheap is what we want, as aggro decks are going to only be playing cheap units, topping off around the 4 to 5 resource area. You know, your typical removal card like Vanquish is really good into cards like Fett's Fire Spray, Avenger, Reinforcement Walker, but not really into cards like Fighters for Freedom or General Dodonna or Sabine Wren. Power of the Dark Side, Open Fire, even Entrenched, those nice, great, cheap removal cards to slot in for that aggro matchup just to keep you on pace with them. It allows you to do multiple actions a turn, because not only are they playing cheap units, but you're playing cheap removal spells. That way you can take advantage of your own action economy and either build up a board or stop them from building up their own. Because if you have cheap removal, you can also use cheap cards to heal and to exhaust. You see how all the herbs and spices are coming together? You see that now, don't you? So mass removal will also come into play late game. If you survive into the late game, of course. It is 50-50 after all. But, you know, Overwhelming Barrage and Super Laser Blast are definitely like the best in-slot cards here. But do not sleep on Bombing Run. That card can do some serious work as well. So we've seen H, E, and R. What does the B in herb stand for? So B stands for bouncing, and it's very similar to exhausting because it is not a straight up removal. It is just a way to buy yourself some more time. Just make sure to not bounce units with wind plate effects, obviously, if possible. So there's going to be situations where you have to, and if they replay the card, it may not be the end of the world, though you do have to be careful handing them even more value into their hand. They may have already affected the board in a positive state, and they can do it again. You know, you don't know what they just drew into their hand to combo with it, unless, you know, you're playing cards that let you look into it. Thrawn, he is one of the top chefs in the country. Even some cards like Viper Probe Droid, Bodhi Brooks, Spark of Rebellion, the Chimera. Really good sous chefs to have in the kitchen alongside you when bouncing. The final letter in herbs is S, and that stands for Sentinels. Now, Sentinels force unit combat, which is a huge win when you're facing aggro decks. Opponents will most of the time have to clear the way by brute forcing the wall that you've established onto the board, which will end up losing them a unit or 2 along the way. Now, aggro does have tools to get around Sentinels, like Spec Force Soldier or any card with the Saboteur keyword, but those are temporary. Spec Force is only the turn it's played, and then Saboteur obviously It's pretty easy to play around units with Saboteur because you can remove the Saboteur units and block the units without Saboteur behind your walls that you're setting up. Also, some sleeper tech, if you guys have never done this before, on your Sentinel units, your Cell Block Guard, your Lieutenant Childsons, throw on an Entrenched, throw on a Devotion. It makes the wall harder to breach. It makes it harder for it to come tumbling down. And in certain situations, like with Devotion, it can also get you some healing. Like, that's how a bunch of the herbs start mixing together in the pot. And then you know that it's time to defeat the aggro decks. Why does the camera do that? So just to recap with you guys, you make sure to cook with your herbs. Healing. Restoring healing effects extend the game. Exhausting buys you enough time to impact the game state. Removal stops their main game plan and it keeps you on pace to hit your own. Bouncing, just look at exhausting, right? And then Sentinels force unit combat. They preserve your base HP. They're all around really good, nice, fun cards to have in your deck. Once you've cooked up a delicious meal, it's time to dig in, baby. No more prep work, no more preheating. Put that fork in and eat. Eat up, attack, and win. What do I mean by attack? Well, you need to learn how to pivot into attack mode at some points in the game as well. You need to clear units. You need to push damage to base. Keep yourself out of lethal range with your own healing and Sentinels. And then, baby, that game is all yours. Just make sure you're able to stabilize before pivoting into attack mode. Otherwise, if you haven't stabilized correctly, if you're too low on HP, if the board state isn't right exactly where you want it, a couple reach cards here and there, and you're out of the game if they end up surprise striking you for a cause I believe in. If you're not careful, then the dish is going to burn you. You don't want to get burned. You want to follow the proper cooking etiquette laid out before you in my cookbook, or you're going to get burned, baby. Your tongue gonna get burned. It's not gonna be good. So just for the last page here in the cookbook, I have some leader recommendations. So slower leader timings can be good still, though they are a lot harder to play. Cards like Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, of course, they are still good leaders, but they're a lot harder to play into aggro because the cheaper the leader, the more impactful your game is going to be. Because, you know, take a Sabine, for example, the premier aggro leader, that comes out on 4 resources at turn 3. And when you play your leader, it is a big swing turn. A lot of things can happen and a lot of things can go right. So the sooner you can play your leader, the better. Palpatine and Vader come out a little bit later than we like. So we wanted to get something a little bit earlier. Cheaper leaders paired with, you know, restore and healing abilities will always be the best into aggro. So leaders like Iden Versio and then also Krennic as well. Krennic comes out 1 turn earlier than Iden. Iden has healing capabilities, but Krennic is just attached with a straight up restore too, right? So those 2 are probably the premier control leaders, or just leaders in general when going up against aggro. Other super fun leaders that I personally enjoy piloting are going to be Thrawn, obviously. Then we also have Boba Fett and even Chewie. Chewie is really good into aggro decks, mainly because one, he's a leader that comes out a little bit slower, but he actively utilizes Sentinels, which is a key part of the herbs process. And not only that, but when he flips, he is a really big Sentinel as well. He's a big wall to get past. Chewie Red and Chewie Yellow are 2 deck lists that I've personally had a lot of fun playing on Carabas, and maybe you'll see a deck list with one of those. If you guys do want to see something like that, let me know down in the comment section below. If you liked this video, liked the style of it, if you thought it was funny and a nice change of pace in the Star Wars Unlimited community, just let me know. I'll greatly appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 500. Hell, we're on the road to 1,000. I mean, if we keep doing 200 a month, we'll hit 1,000 by what, August, September, just in time for set 3. Maybe I give away a box. Hey, I don't know. But anyways, this has been your boy James with Make an Opening, the #1 chef in the Star Wars Unlimited community, the #1 Thrawn enjoyer, the Jaden Destroyer. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.